Hello, I'm Jen Hutchison. Thank you for joining me on this podcast, and thank you to Brimbank Libraries for uh, inviting me to be the third one of the presenters of these fabulous books that the three authors have managed to create for ourselves. I've had a look at the other two presentations, and they're hard acts to follow. But thank you very much. If before COVID, or if COVID hadn't happened, we'd be at Keilor Library, and I would have met you at the door and introduced myself to you, and then we'd be having a conversation together. But that's not the way it is. This is quite a sort of an intimate topic, talking about grief and recovery, if it's at all possible. And thank you very much for joining. We're going to be talking about my book, Motherling. Here it is. And you can see I'm in my living room, and this is my bookshelf. There are some copies of it there. This is a very special book, and it's since it's been released, it is actually had a life that I had not really seen coming. It's got a life bigger than itself, ongoing. Here's the reason why. So let's head into this. We'll be as entertaining as we can be with this sensitive issue. I thought I'd written a book about the Camino. I went for a walk along the Camino with some of my son's ashes, and I wrote the book around the Camino, my experiences of the Camino, the people I'd met, the experiences I'd had, and the transformation in myself from not knowing how to cope with my grief when the worst nightmare of any parent's life is delivered to you without warning. How do you live beyond that experience? You can never get over it. But if you want to live on and thrive, which is the best way to honour your young one's life, then there are some very special things that have to be learnt. I thought I'd written a book about the Camino, but I found out afterwards that, and since Motherling has been launched, that I wrote a book about grief. And I know that because I have more than 50 letters now, mostly from women, from other motherlings, and I'll tell you about the name of the book in a little while, and how it got the name, but letters from women thanking me. I've been incredibly humbled to learn that this book has a life beyond what I considered I was writing, thanking me for tackling this difficult subject of the profound, this club that you get to life membership of without ever wanting to join, of people who have lost young ones. And thanking, so I've got lots of letters that have taught me that this book is about grief. People buy a copy of the book and they read it themselves, then find it's precious, and they don't want to give it away, so they come and buy a second copy of the book. Everybody knows a Motherling. It's the saddest club there is, and we all want to help. So they're either people buy a copy for somebody else they know who has been through this loss, or they're actually, they're trying to care and help. So I walked from Pamplona in northern Spain right across to Santiago, 800 kilometres. I hadn't walked 800 kilometres ever in my life before, couldn't imagine it. I'd never walked more than 15 in a single day, and it took me 33 days to walk 800 kilometres, and I carried little sachets of ashes, of Raif's ashes, and where and when the spirit took me. I'm not a religious person, although it is a sort of religious pilgrimage, a lot of churches. I carry little sachets, and where the spirit took me, and where the sentiment, where I felt the strong sentiment, the wind, the light, the clouds, the landscape, I would make a little commemoration. Much of the time when I go like this, I had my son at my shoulder. I was sharing my life with him as his mother, and I had a very strong sense that he was sharing his life with me. And somewhere along that Camino, what began to rise up in me was the ability to, which had not been there in the 15 months since his death, was the ability to see beyond. to actually celebrate the joy of having had this remarkable young man in my life for 31 years. By all measures of life that parents put to their children, he was a success. He was a fine young man, a fabulous mind, an amazing wit, gave great hugs, and beautifully educated, and was working as a money index trader in Hong Kong. We thought very successful, and he was, except that he had become addicted to cocaine. And we brought him home, packed a lot of support around him, but he didn't make it. He died from opiate layering. Some of those drugs were prescribed to him to help him get through his recovery. There's a lot of discussion and debate around now about opiate layering and the danger that it creates. And it irritates me that we call these recreational drugs, because we all know they're killers. So I was in Pamplona, and let me tell you about the name of the book and how it came to be Motherling, with an L in the middle. I arrived on a Sunday night and dropped my 8-kilo backpack with one change of everything at the hotel, and walked in the plaza. And it was a mellow Sunday evening, just late in the autumn. I started walking on the 21st of October. I can't stand the heat. And I was walking through the plaza, and all I could see was mothers. I was surrounded by mothers with babes in arms. All I could see were mothers and sons, little boys on tricycles, little boys in little gangs playing chasey, grandmothers with their with grandchildren, young grandchildren, adult men talking to older women who were their mothers, and grandparents with their grandchildren. And the tears were flowing, and I thought, what have I done? What have I done? I have come all this way away on my own, and I don't know what to call myself. It used to really distress me. I have 4 children. Do I still have 4 children now that there's no Raif? Am I still Raif's mother now there's no Raif? How do I only have 3 children? How do I relate to myself? And I thought, it's not fair. I was looking across the plaza and thought, this is not fair. We don't have a word for us as a group, this awful club nobody wants to belong to, but you get a life membership. We have, I was thinking, we have widow and widower, we have foundling, we have orphan. And I thought this word motherling just came to me, and I thought, I'm having that. We deserve a word. We are motherlings. So roll forward 18 months, close to 2 years, in fact, to the publication of the book. And we were about to publish it, and I thought, oh, I just better check. Excuse me. I just better check on the etymology, the source of this word in history, and make sure that I made it up. Did I make it up, or did it come to me? Have I ever read it? I had no conscious memory of having ever read it. And I looked it up, and sure enough, it is a pre-Shakespearean word in the English language that's been lost in time, and it means gorgeous mother. And I thought, aha, we're having it. And one more thing, the Wheeler Centre here in Melbourne still has an Adopt a Word program. So I rang them and said, I really want to adopt this word motherling, but you don't have it on your list. That's great. They said, we'll do the research, and if it's a true word, I told them what I discovered, you can have it. And so I adopted the word. Journeys Towards Publishing has adopted the word. And we are gorgeous, precious mothers because we are. So what do you do on a Camino? You walk. You get out of bed every morning, you stay in a hostel or a small hotel or a pension, a private home or an Airbnb, whatever you choose, and you walk. And at the end of the day, I had promised I would keep a journal so that my other 3 children could find the places where I had left little commemorations of their brother. And And every day, I had a glass of wine at the end of every day. I would go to the hotel, find a hotel or find a pension or a hostel, and change into my other set of clothes, shower and change, wash my socks, wash my knickers, and then go to a bar or sit. I wouldn't have a glass of wine until I'd finished my journal. And every day I wrote notes and made a record of the people, and it just wrote itself. People I'd spoken to, how I'd been treated. You're treated so graciously as a pilgrim. You're carrying the braid and the scallop shell on your backpack. I was, which is the mark of the pilgrim, treated with great dignity. People have been walking this particular pilgrimage for 2,000 years. It's a culture in the northern part of Spain. Like a lot of people, like a lot of women, I had been daughter, sister, wife, mother. But like that old song, I'd never really been to me. And that's what my Camino did for me. It gave me the ability to seek who I am internally, who I am when all the layers of those entities, I'm sorry, I've got this frog in my throat this morning, of who I am when all these other personas that we wear are taken away. And I'm incredibly grateful that I followed that instinct, and it wasn't always easy. In fact, it's quite a lot of it is a slog, and there were many moments when I wondered what on earth I'd done. But through that came this amazing inner strength, which I still go like this. It is there for me every time I go out for a walk, and so I do that often. So when I came back, I had 2 journals. I've got them both here. One was what I called my grief journal. My dear writing friend in Sydney, Betty O'Neill, had given this to me at Raif's funeral, actually. And for the first year after his death, this is where the raw, visceral, painful aspects of the tragedy were written. And interestingly, the last entry in this is a year later, was, it still is, I wonder if I'll ever do that walk Raif spoke about, and this is the journal. And so at the end of that, the book sort of wrote itself. I had these 2, and there is a journalistic process called threading, and I decided I would thread these 2, weave them together. I wish I had a magic wand, I don't. And so that's what happened. Motherling was written from those 2 accounts. And yes, some of it is confronting from the grief diary, and much of it is entertaining and light-hearted, as my original and natural default sunny temperament shone through. I'm going to give you a little reading. It only takes a couple of minutes, so long as my voice doesn't give out. And it's called Feet. I've put it right at the front of the book, and it's quite interesting. Feet. October. The way the universe delivers information astounds me. So often in life, we only have to be, our ears and eyes open, the truth will arrive. There I was thinking about feet, pilgrim's feet, and what to do about my own painful pair. I'd adopted the Zen, the practical and the spiritual aspects of foot care, and they still hurt. At rest stops, I'd taken my shoes off and massaged my toes. In the evenings, I'd propped my feet up the wall to aid circulation. I'd thanked them too, daily, for their great effort in holding me up and moving me forward. I was asking myself, what else do I have to do here, universe? When distraction arrived. A tanned and sinewy young man pounded up behind me. His cheery greeting took me out of my sweating, self-pitying reverie. Hello, I'm Jonas from Germany, the east part. How are you? Why are you here? He liked to chat and had a barking forthrightness. I said my name without volunteering. I was alone. I said I was fine, except for sore feet. I'm walking Pamplona to Santiago, I continued. And why are you here? I had some problems, and I thought I should walk to clear my head and make me feel better. Jonas glanced across as we walked, his face unsure. And do you? Are you feeling better? Yes, I do, he grinned. I've turned my life around. Good to hear. What flashed through my mind with instinctive surety was that this young man had a story of recovery from drugs, there for the asking. I caught myself. It was none of my business. We talked on, or rather Jonas did. He said he walked for 7 hours a day and averaged 7 kilometres an hour. My jogging speed, I thought, calculating my walking pace, to be about 5 or 6 at the most. He told me he stepped out of his front door, turned left and had started walking 72 days and 3,000 kilometres back. He'd been averaging 30 a day. We talked about feet. I told him my current woes. He smiled. All pilgrims talk about their feet. They probably always have. The previous day, Jonas told me, he had taken delivery of his 4th pair of trekking boots sent by his mother to a post office along the way. Your feet will get bigger as you walk, Jen. There are 26 bones, 33 joints, and more than 100 muscles in your feet, he rattled off. If you exercise like this every day, the foot will grow bigger. You will need larger shoes. Think of bodybuilders. He grinned. It's repetitive exercise. They get huge, so will your feet. I don't know why I hadn't figured this out for myself. It had taken a lean as a string bean, open-hearted young man in bouncing mental and physical good health to pass by and have a word. It had taken a lean as a string bean, open-hearted young man in bouncing mental and physical good health to pass by and have a word. Buy a new pair, he said. Send those home or leave them on the roadside for someone else. After half an hour of congenial chatter, we said goodbye. My snail pace was too slow for Jonas, and he said so in his clipped accent, still smiling. I thanked him for the lesson and for his company, and he charged ahead with a wave, and buen camino in Spanish means good day, good camino, good pilgrimage, disappearing up and over a smooth grass-covered hill. He was out of sight by the time I hobbled to the top. I patted my box of ashes, smiled, and walked on. When the book had written itself, I had in the previous years spent a lot of time working with other writers, and I had become very interested in publishing. I began a Masters of Writing and Publishing at RMIT to learn how to make books. We all go into bookstores, and most of us take for granted what the technology and the amazing process of manufacturing a book. It's a very complex undertaking. I learned how to do that. I've been fascinated for a long time about mature age writers. We're not all that well represented in mainstream publishing. We just sort of don't fit their business model. That's not completely true all the time, but it is often enough true. And so I decided to establish Journeys Towards Publishing, which focuses entirely on the work of mature age writers. So I went first with Motherling because I know how much heart and soul goes into writing a book, and I didn't want to mess up somebody else's heart and soul work. And yeah, we made a few mistakes, but it was me making mistakes on my own behalf, so we got through those with Motherling. And as I said earlier, it has a life beyond what I proposed and what I imagined for it. And the joy of walking into a bookstore and seeing your own book on the new releases table is beyond anything I have ever imagined. And I'm delighted that happened to me. Quite a little selfish moment, but it was great. I wished my mum and dad could have seen that. As you can see, I'm a woman of a certain age and not used to working on film anymore. That's what COVID's done to us. Taking on not new technologies, but new ways of communicating. I'm getting used to it, but it's a big step for me. And so we published Motherling in May last year. In July, we published a terrific novel called High Infidelity. It's sort of like Eat, Pray, Love meets Bridget Jones' Diary in Byron Bay, and it's a lot of fun. We then published Burke Street, My View from Here, which is the story of Tony Brooks, who sits at the top of Burke Street all day, every day. Some of you may know Burke Street in the city, up near Parliament House. He sits outside the paperback bookstore in the old Jobs, next to the old Job warehouse, and he has a remarkable story which he'd never told anybody. And then we published in March, just as COVID was closing us down, a terrific novel called The Place Between, which is about the relationship between a mother and daughter by Perth author Suzanne Moore. And we've got 8 or 9 books coming out very soon, in the next year, very soon. We've got a terrific book by a retired doctor called Pandemic Stress, Reflections on Thriving in an Anxious World. Very timely and just the right sort of title for today. All available on our website, journeystowordspublishing.com, or at your favourite bookstore. You can ask for them. Thank you very much for sharing this time with me. I am what I am. I love what I do, and I get great joy from watching Motherlings take something precious from reading the book and from helping mature age writers to be the best writers they can be. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thanks to Brimbank. See you again in the library somewhere. Been doing a lot of this stuff, either physically and now getting used to the movie version. See you again soon in a library. Thanks very much for joining in. Bye.